And they've tried something else. They're saying that, how do we stop this guy? Right? We've got to get him a wife or something. You know, he's only
he doesn't have a wife.
Oh,
those guys are.
That's the answer.
Those guys are dangerous. Watch out for the single guys.
A bunch of private investigators were set up. It's like, how can he not have a wife?
Yeah.
They found that he could have a wife, and they separated many, many years ago.
Yeah, because he was the dictator in the house as well, right?
He's not. He really is not. He's not. It's like we're comparing it to what we have seen in the Western world. It's nothing like that.
Uh-huh.
It's not like that. India is a different kettle of fish. And the most surprising thing for me, Gary, was how fast the country is converted into cashless society, like technology, villages and villages.
The people that are still with us, the ones that didn't like die.
Well, they didn't die. Nobody died.
Oh, I thought. Okay, I guess it is more sensational than you said.
There were a few people that really who died in the lines in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, you'd like they die in so many ways in India. It's like really, every movie shoot there are at least 6-7 deaths. Nobody talks about it.
Yeah, construction.
It's quite interesting.
Well, the whole Indian thing, we've been talking about it for the last 3 or 4 weeks, but we've only got the portal view through the media, and it's good to get a person who's actually there to comment.
I had to go and visit some of my family, so I took a taxi, and because I cannot stand being in cars for too long driving, and these are supposed to be 4 or 5 hour drives, so I do my time collapse thing. So the taxi drivers make strange decisions, like decide to go to different little villages, and so
is it running on the meter?
No, it's a fixed price.
Okay.
So then I see all these crowds of people gathered, every few seconds, and I actually want to, I want to have tea in this mud cup. I do. My book, I really like that idea. So why don't we stop there? Then I thought I could talk to the 2 big queues, and they all happen to be outside banks. So I'll just go and chat to these people.
So you did?
I did, yeah.
And they were like,
I've spoken about at least 8 groups in that trip.
Wow. And they were reporting that they weren't. It was okay. Like if we can get rid of the black money and the corruption.
Well, initially, because I did this trip 3 times, right? So the first 2 weeks when it had just come out, they were saying, we are making money just for standing in the queue. So what does it matter? For every 5 lakh, for every 50,000, I get 500 rupees. So it's
come on in, guys.
Because the wealthy were using their bank accounts to rotate money. So that was the first 2 weeks.
It's like a money-making opportunity.
Commissions, commission sales.
And then it actually started hitting them because there wasn't enough money to even pay them. So they were having to move from big towns back to their villages. So it was like, oh gosh, how is this going to happen? But then they said, look at us, we are helping each other. So this guy is giving us tea, we are giving him some grain from our thing. So, and they were saying,
it like drove them together, like it was
tough, but it's bringing us back to what our grandfathers talked about.
Fascinating.
And so we want this to happen. And then a couple of weeks later, I was there for like nearly 6 weeks. I was now in Mumbai, different cattle of fish, and went shopping to the fish market and stuff. Not that I wanted to buy, I just wanted to talk to people.
Right, yeah.
With them. And by that time, they were all on PTMs. You could buy a piece of fish from a fishmonger and sell it on PTM. It's okay.
Yeah.
And that's how did you learn to use this? And so
necessity is.
Focus on the TV.
The mother.
And I thought, wow, the TV on the TV. Yeah.
Well, I am watching with interest. That was one of the biggest things of the year that we talked about, at least in terms of like a long-standing topic. It's been at least a month since that went down, and we've been talking about it all the time. I think that whole question or occurrence embodies a lot of the things that we talk about how people use money, how they cooperate, the money's role in society.
That actually evolving. It was so interesting to watch.
Yeah, that's fascinating. All right, guys, it's about that time, 5 p.m. local time here in Bali, time for the filter, the very last filter of 2016. We are going to do a wrap-up show. What happened in 2016? What was interesting in 2016? We got together every week, almost every week this year. We talked about stuff, and we're going to have a recap that goes over, well, all the highlights. I posted something in the group earlier that said, what are the biggest things that happened in 2016? And I got a lot of people chiming in. Well, the first thing was Bitcoin is dead, right?
Yes.
Mike Hearn,
Long live
Bitcoin is dead. We're going to talk about that. Then we had the Dow, and then the Dow died. What's up with 2016? 2016 is like the year of I don't know, maybe new beginnings. Then we had Craig Wright, the Satoshi, and then Satoshi died. Well, he didn't die, but the story that he used Satoshi died. Stick with me. I got a theme here. It's the death theme. And then we had the halving. We had Bitfinex. That was kind of a death.
Wasn't it the
That was the
I'm just saying that.
the happening or the having? The happening is like a horror, like, isn't the happening like a Dawn of the Dead show or something?
No, it's a cooking thing. Yeah.
We had R3. R3 kind of died.
R3 definitely died.
All right, so let's get into it. We've also got a very special guest with us. Jay is going to give us an update on the BitGive project, the ability to track charitable contributions using Bitcoin and the blockchain. We're going to that project is going to happen in 2017. So we'll stick around to the end. We're going to get an update on that. All right, let's kick things off. Folks, everybody here for the Bitcoin meeting? Everybody in the right place?
Yes.
All right, let me just share my screen. There we go. Everybody at home should be seeing that.
There's hello to everyone
All right.
in the chat.
Yes, there's the chat, the Canggu chat. We've got our
Canggu chat.
South Africa representation. Hey, guys.
Yes,
Help me-
you
help me-
are on the projector. You are
Yeah?
on the projector.
Okay, good, good.
See what you're saying.
Yes, we can see you guys. Help me see this, because I might, if something pops up there, then
Yeah.
flag me down.
Gary handles the tech.
I'm a one-man band. It's a one-man show here today. All right, here we go. Number 106. Let's jump right into it. What was the biggest story of the year for 2016?
Oh, not.
Brad Pitt and Angelina breakup. That was like, that eclipsed all other stories of the year, right?
Keith Richards didn't die.
Keith Richards didn't die.
Yeah.
Yes, in keeping with our death theme, no, that wasn't the biggest story of the year. Let's talk about the price. Arguably, price could be the story of the year, right? Check out 2016.
Yeah.
That's happening right here. Right here. I think I've got a better view of it on the Bitcoin time machine. Check this out. Over the course of the year, this is like every salesperson's dream, every marketer's dream. You want a graph that goes up and to the right. That's always good news, right? Okay, so we went from roundabout what is that? 418 to, we are now,
750.
we're like trying to get to 800. I think that's pretty crazy. And you know, I like to think that people come because I'm so entertaining and we always have such great conversations here, but there is a direct correlation between the price and the number of people that show up for these Bitcoin meetings. I don't know what it is. Do you think
Except
people,
for your diehards who are here.
do you think
at the
people like,
200s.
do they want money for nothing? Is this like a get rich quick kind of thing? Is that what Bitcoin's all about? We just care about making money? Yeah. Well, there's certainly lots of speculators in the Bitcoin world, and you know we talk a lot about volatility, right? Someday the price should be very boring. Hopefully someday we have a very boring price discussion. You know, last week it was $10,001, and this week it's $10,001.01. Like maybe we won't even cover that. Let's all hope. Is $10,000 where it's going to land? Is that going to be the stable? That'd be okay with me. $10,000, that's all right.
That would be all right.
Yeah, just a nice round number, like right there around. Okay, well, you can you can have your own pie in the sky hopes. All right, here we go. This is a tweet that Willie put us on to that covered the big items of the year.
Yes.
What do you think? Mike Hearn quits Bitcoin. Do you guys remember that?
Yes, of course.
Do you guys
In a
remember-
large huff.
Do you guys remember Craig Wright? Satoshi from Australia? How about the Dow? Does that stick in your mind?
Oh, Craig.
ETH versus ETC, Bitfinex, IRS. Let's talk about this stuff. All right, so this is January 15th, 2016. A little less than a year ago, our man Mike Hearn, who was very prominent in the Bitcoin world, very outspoken. This was the final post of a series of posts where he was jumping up and down and saying, Bitcoin, there's a problem with Bitcoin, we need to fix Bitcoin scalability. And then he finally threw in the towel. But despite knowing that Bitcoin could fail all along, the new inescapable conclusion is that it has failed and still saddens me greatly. The fundamentals are broken, and whatever happens to the price in the short term, we've had quite a rise in the short term over the past year. The long-term trend should probably be downwards. I will no longer be taking part in Bitcoin development and have sold all of my coins.
Whoa. Willie says, shouldn't one coin make it into the top?
Oh, OneCoin. Yes, that's not on the list. All right, well, we'll try and squeeze it in. I know you're pumping. We want to give you your last chance to pump OneCoin before you cash out. All right, so that was Mr. Mike Hearn saying Bitcoin is dead, and he was kind of right. This graph doesn't show it all that well, but this is the number of transactions per day, and we really kind of flatlined in 2016. We got a few more transactions per day here at the end, but for the most part, our transactions per day kind of leveled off, right? We talked about that many times. And a lot of people got involved in pontificating about how we solve this problem, this throughput problem around 5, 6, 7 transactions per second. Bitcoin is like totally jammed, right? And do you remember what we talked about in terms of what are our options for making Bitcoin more scalable? Peanut Gallery, anybody? SegWit, Lightning. So that you got the SegWit and Lightning camp, right? So there's a schism in the whole Bitcoin world where some people want to do one thing, Lightning and SegWit, and a bunch of other people wanted to do something else. What was the other thing? Block size increase?
Block size.
Block size increase. It's the block size debate. And everybody said at the beginning, why don't we just...
Last year too, by the way.
Now what's interesting is here's the SegWit adoption. It kind of it has peaked off, and I don't think we can get SegWit unless about 80 or 90% of the miners get on board. So 95%. Yeah, we're almost there. We're 25%. Like here we go, 25%. We'll be there by year 2021, 20.
And I think it's a little bit misleading because when some big pools jump in already, they already hold like 20% of the whole power. So when one mining pool decides to flip, it also already goes to 50%.
Right.
So,
well, and the other interesting part about it is pools that dominate the mining, and some pools are in one camp and other pools are in another camp, and there are individual miners that can stop mining in one pool and they can start mining in another pool. But it's kind of interesting that SegWit is for the moment it's topped out, right? We also have the Lightning Network, which depends on SegWit implementation, is my understanding. So we don't get Lightning until we get SegWit. SegWit's a little bit stalled, and we've been trying to up the block size since Mike Hearn was talking about this. And it seems that we are paralyzed. Are we going to solve this problem? That was the big question that we talked about during all of 2016. We talked about governance and how does Bitcoin make decisions? What are the camps involved? Bitcoin was supposed to be apolitical, and now we find ourselves right back in the realm of human cooperation, human consensus, not computer consensus, trying to solve this relatively basic technical problem of scalability. What's the over-under on us getting by this problem?
We're kind of at stalemate, aren't we?
We're a little bit at a stalemate, and that's what Mike Hearn said was the problem, that we wouldn't be able to solve our problems. But I've been using Bitcoin all year. How about you guys?
Yes, and It has slowed down a lot.
For that first confirmation?
Yes, it is really a significant shift from the beginning of the year.
Okay.
When it was,
Yeah, I
within
think
a matter of minutes, and now a few hours is not unusual.
for one confirmation,
Yes,
multiple hours for one confirmation.
yes.
And
It can only mean one thing, right?
well, it should be a function of the transaction fee that you attach to a particular transaction. That we've actually matured this. Bitcoin has got to pay for itself in the future with transaction fees, and arguably a lot of the development work around dynamic calculation of these fees has happened as a consequence of the stalemate. So we've had all kinds of innovation in the wake of this stagnation in terms of the block size. So, and a fee marketplace has arisen. And where's my fee marketplace graph? Right. Sorry, I thought I had a graph that showed the miners' revenue. So
Yeah, you did. You
You
can
did, you
find
went
it.
past it.
okay, all right.
You got 5 now.
You think it's this one?
Hold up.
There,
Miners' revenue.
miners revenue. That's
So basically, they were making this much before the halvening, and now they're making this much, which is like, I don't know.
It's like a third.
Right, but you can, if you look at this trend here, this trend is the miners' revenue rising because of the rising fees, and if you attach the right fee at the right time, you should have a 10-minute response time.
But I never had to do that before. That's the thing.
Well, your wallet should be doing it on your behalf.
It's not.
Okay. So
Or if it is, then it may be different with
Then
our
you're not
local
getting a good
vendors.
payback for,
Yeah.
like the wallet might be applying it.
Hold on, that's
Well-
Australian USD, not that's right.
it was in USD, yeah. So it does relate to the price rising. True. Anyway, so we are in this world where we haven't solved this problem yet. The price does continue to rise, and it is working to a certain extent. A lot of use cases will go away when you're paying $1, $2, $3 per transaction, and if we want to have microtransactions and other things, if we want the scalability of, say, the Visa, MasterCard network, I think we're going to have to solve that problem, and it doesn't look like a solution is imminent, at least to that. So in the wake of no decision, that just means that transactions will be more expensive, and it probably means that, well, after a certain point in time, we won't be able to buy food, we won't be able to go to a restaurant. If we're going to pay a dollar for a fee for a transaction, we're not going to buy a $5 hamburger, right?
We're going to use our Visa or MasterCard.
Right.
instead.
That's going to go away, and there's going to have to be some solution delivered on another layer of the stack. And it's possible, and this is actually the camp that advocates for keeping the block size at 1 megabyte is pushing for Bitcoin being a settlement layer. So you're not going to buy hamburgers. You're not going to buy. You're going to do all of that accounting off chain, and then settle using the settlement layer that Bitcoin is, according to their vision. It's fascinating because Bitcoin is just a force of nature. Like, it cannot change unless there's consensus, and it's possible that it will not change. And then the question becomes, will Bitcoin die a slow death, like Mike Hearn suggested, or will it cost $100 to make a Bitcoin transaction, and that's just going to be useful when you're sending $10,000, and that's going to be some sort of global balance of payment system. No longer a little payment system. It's going to be a settlement layer and a balance of payments reconciliation mechanism. Right?
That was not the intention.
That was not the original vision of Satoshi. Satoshi wanted a digital cash system, and if transactions cost $1 or more, then that's not really cash, is it?
And we wanted it, or they wanted a decentralized digital cash system. So
Right.
it's significant.
Well, interesting. That is a trade-off, the decentralization, and that is the argument for this 1 megabyte restriction. Because if they keep the block size or the blockchain size small enough, then more people can afford to run nodes, and it will remain decentralized. That's the philosophical viewpoint they take. They're going for decentralization. And if you went to a 2 megabyte block, the blockchain would grow at twice the rate that it's growing at now, and it's already, I don't know, anybody know, like 100 gigs, 90, 100 gigs, something like that. Anyway, okay, let's move on here, guys. So, we're kind of asking existential questions about whether Bitcoin's going to live or not, and according to the obituary stats at 99 Bitcoins, the trend is in our favor. Like the global sentiment is that Bitcoin maybe won't die. Of course, they thought it was going to die 28 times in 2016, but that's down from 2015. Remember 2015 was like a really kind of, it was just kind of, the price was just kind of bouncing around between 250, 300.
It was low for so
And so
long.
maybe people thought that it was more vulnerable or that it would never again reach its old highs, but we are toying around with historical highs for Bitcoin. And so the rumors of Bitcoin's demise perhaps are exaggerated. All right, you remember this guy?
Yeah.
Let's play a little bit of this. I mean, any poker players in the room? Poker players? Watch this guy tell his story.
About to demonstrate assigning of a message with the public key that is associated with the first transaction ever done on Bitcoin.
And who does the world think did that first transaction? What's the name associated with that first transaction?
The monk here is Satoshi Nakamoto.
So you're going to show me that Satoshi Nakamoto is you?
Yes. Some people will believe, some people won't. And to tell you the truth, I don't really care.
And you can say, hang on, part to me, I am Satoshi Nakamoto.
I was the main part of it. Other people helped me.
Why did you feel though that you had to come out, and why did you feel you had to keep secret for so long?
I would prefer to be secret now. I don't think I should have to be out there. There's nothing owed to the world where I have to come out and say, I am X, I am Y. And no one needs to do that. It is my right not to say I did something. If I release a paper that actually benefits people, why do I have to actually take credit for it? Why do I?
Wouldn't you be proud to be known as Satoshi Nakamoto?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean I have to bounce around in front of TV cameras.
All right. Do you guys remember this breaking news story back when we?
Yes.
Okay, so there's some people that like came along to the Bitcoin meetings. Just to fill you in, this guy claimed to be Satoshi Nakamoto, right? And he did a few press releases, reached out to the press. Here, wait, where's my London Review of Books? He did a big. Maybe I got rid of that. Anyway, there was a big long form journalism piece about this story about the Australian tax authority thinking that he's Satoshi Nakamoto, raiding his house, him like running from the law, like flying to Fiji or something. I mean, this is crazy. It's like better than a spy novel. And finally, he ended up in London and he did this thing with the BBC and he did all this fanfare. They flew Gavin Andreessen and some other people over to the UK to watch him sign a transaction with the keys that are associated with the original Bitcoins that could only belong to Satoshi, like the ones that are in the Genesis block, the first Bitcoins ever. And it was like the biggest anticlimax of the year. Does anybody do you remember what happened? He signed basically the way cryptography works is you've got two key pairs and you're not able to sign a transaction that belongs to a public key unless you have the private key, right? And he took a document, because you've got to encrypt some, in order, if you want to sign something, you need an input to sign it with, right? And he chose something to sign that already existed. It was like some sort of quote or a file with a quotation in it, if I remember correctly. And he signed this thing, with this pre-existing file, and it came out that he was able to come out with the output from this signature proof, and this was his proof. Now, there was all kinds of controversy about this because he wouldn't do anything else. He wouldn't sign like some new piece of information that somebody gave him, and he wouldn't send any of the funds. Like I could prove to you that I own any Bitcoins because I could send you some Bitcoin, and you could see that it came from my address, and it's like job done. There's no way that you don't own those Bitcoins. If I was sending Satoshi's Bitcoins, then you could presume that I either killed Satoshi and took his keys, or I am Satoshi. And he didn't do that. He just signed something that he produced before the fact, which could have been Satoshi proving to him that he was Satoshi.
Yes.
Right? Do you remember this? Like, you need a novel new input to sign if you want to prove that you just then created the output. And he did not do that. He did not send any Bitcoins. He's got lots of patents and business deals in the works that probably would benefit if he were perceived as Satoshi. He definitely was involved from the beginning, and he probably has a lot of Bitcoin, and he probably is very smart. But, when this thing first came out, I just watched his face. Like, he just didn't seem like he was telling the truth to me. So, now the other meta thing is maybe he is Satoshi. maybe he is Satoshi, and he wanted to act like have a total farce so that people would be like, oh, that guy's not Satoshi, and then he could ride off into the sunset. I don't know, but man, was that that was a fascinating couple meetings we had at that time of the year. So equally exciting was the DAO. Do you guys remember the DAO? How many people remember or know what the DAO is? Yeah, kinda, sorta. Did you look into it? Because didn't we talk about it and we were like, what is the DAO? Okay, I'll give it the 5-second version of what is the DAO. Bitcoin is like headless money, and the DAO was supposed to be a headless venture capital firm. So they did their initial fundraiser, right, where they were selling DAO tokens. Lots of hype, lots of hubris, lots of we are going to show what Ethereum can do, right? The DAO was an Ethereum project. And the whole idea was everybody invests some money, right? They put a bunch of money into this this headless venture capital firm, and then they have a smart contract that will evaluate all of the potential projects that the DAO can fund. And DAO token holders can decide if they want to fund this project or fund that project. There's a whole voting mechanism involved. And it was a really exciting idea. Like the thought that you could have a digital autonomous organization is or distributed autonomous organization is what the DAO stood for. And that you could put your money in, and then you don't have politics, you don't have administrative costs, you have, something magical happens where you can fund all these projects and make all these beautiful things happen in the world, and you don't have inside players and politics and et cetera, et cetera. Now, what happened? There was $150 million worth of money put into this smart contract. And yes, we had the DAO hacker. Somebody found a way to create a recursive call, because Ethereum is the world computer, right? It is a distributed world computer. And when they created the DAO, they said the DAO is the law, right? Whatever the code, we don't have to say anything about the code. The code speaks for itself. And it's supposed to be executing the functions of a venture capital firm, but somebody realized that if they created their own recursive function call and created sub-DAOs or subversions of the DAO itself, that it could pay itself. So this guy launched this recursive function call on the Ethereum computer, and all of a sudden, funds began draining from the DAO smart contract.
It's like 15 million, right?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how it broke down.
A very
So
big
really,
number.
it wasn't a hack. So
Well, that's-
our language around this needs to be a bit
Yes.
more
Well,
sophisticated.
we had the DAO hacker posted something on Pastebin that said, I'd like to thank the DAO for the feature that allows me to create sub-DAOs. And he was trying to reframe the whole occurrence, not as somebody stole all the funds from the DAO, but hey, I created a contract that follows all the rules. The code is the law. And I love this feature that allows me to create sub-DAOs. Thank you very much, the DAO hacker, whatever. I don't remember what his name was at the end. And it was an anonymous post, like he put it in Postbin, but it was just fascinating. Like, it's better than fiction. Like, if this was a book, I'd be really enjoying it. It really happened with $150 million. I mean, that's not how much he ended up taking. And actually, what ended up happening is this other really weird, wild paradox where this world computer, this computer that was supposed to execute commands, in a disinterested third-party arbiter way, like it's just the code. The world computer Ethereum just executes the code, and it's censorship-proof, and nobody can mess with it. And what did they do? They went in and they, after the fact, and they adjusted what happened. This is a blockchain. This is supposed to be an immutable record. This is supposed to never change, right? And there's our man, Griff Green, who was trying to navigate all this. He was the community organizer for the DAO. And of course, there's $150 million at stake, and all this money starts disappearing, and they all start wondering, what are we going to do now? What's going to happen? This was days, just maybe within 24 hours of the whole thing going down, and everybody wanted to wring this guy's throat. He was, to his credit, he kept like a really good attitude during the whole time, and a lot of people think that
He's a surfer.
the kids, they gave $150 million to a bunch of dumb kids, is what they ended up thinking, and a lot of people were unhappy with him, and there was a seeming lack of contrition. At least that was what a lot of people thought at the time. It's $150 million. He's like, kind of like, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to, have this hard fork, and we're going to get the money back to the original people who invested, and but there was obviously a lot of people with their panties in a bunch over this set of circumstances, and they really, it was a bit of a PR nightmare. A bit, to say the least, it was a bit of a PR nightmare. And I talked to him for an hour. This is one of the filter number 88, and by far the most number of views I've ever had, and the most number of thumbs down.
Sure they went for you.
But anyway, it was just, if you can take a step back, the whole thing was very exciting, and maybe it was worth $150 million. I don't know. By the way, most everybody got their money back. In fact, there was a way for them to unwind this whole thing.
I'm not sure the chat is scrolling down. You've got 36 unread messages.
Oh.
So I think you've got people
thank you.
interacting that we're not seeing them.
Yeah, let's take a look. Really? You think some people have some opinions about the DAO?
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
These guys might be talking amongst themselves. Craig Wright. Does Craig Wright live in a convict island? All the world's a theater, and Craig Wright got his 15 minutes of fame.
Stop using the name in vain.
Will, you're not here. You got to be here in person to defend yourself. Otherwise, it's no holds barred, man. Anyway.
Well, why don't you tell us how you really feel, Will?
Oh yeah, Will. you know, we've talked about this, and even in recent times, and Will is very, he's kind of down on Ethereum, and says it's a world computer with an infinite attack surface, and will ultimately go to zero, but we shall see. But we're going to talk about Ethereum in a minute. Here's the December 12th. Rick Green is still talking about the DAO. Guess how much money is still in the DAO contract? $10 million worth of unclaimed DAO tokens.
Wow.
Why is that? I don't think the DAO is happening, but there's still $10 million worth of funds tied up in the DAO.
Whoa.
You think it's black money?
Well, some of them would belong to the hacker.
Yeah, but
Because
not
they
these
would have
tokens.
the
These are eligible to be withdrawn from the DAO contract.
They're basically saying, give me your money back.
Oh, is there? Yeah.
It seems
Hey,
to
guys.
have jumped back up again to the top for some reason.
Oh. Let's see. Anyway, I think this is interesting. You know, when they did the initial offering of the DAO, they were offering it 1-to-1, 1 Ether for 1 DAO or something, or 1 Ether for 100 or 1,000 DAOs. And then as it approached, the payoff was less and less. So for 1 Ether, you only got 0.8 of a DAO, 0.7 of a DAO. And I think the refunds were, the refund process was a little bit of a mayhem, to say the least. And I think that whole, how do you get the portional DAO back to the people who, then there's a different value of Ether at that time, and it was a bit of a mess. And I bought a few DAOs just to participate at the time. There's a lot of excitement, and I got my DAOs back, but I don't know if I missed like 10% or something of my return. And I suspect that's where these are. There were a lot of people, like people in this room who are, not super technical, jumped in on this DAO phenomenon. And, if it was a little bit tricky to get your DAO back, I think it might have confused people, Anyway, he's got a blog post here that says, hey, come get your DAO tokens and trade them in for Ether. There's $10 million worth of Ether to be reclaimed. So if you haven't done that, maybe it's worth another look. Maybe there's a few tokens in there for you to claim. So that's the upshot. Now, what happened as a result of this schism? We had a schism between Ethereum Classic and Ethereum itself. We now have ETC and ETH, 2 new tokens. We had the blockchain split. We had 2 versions of reality. The reality Ethereum Classic, which did not fork and did not return any DAO funds, did not basically ignored the whole DAO occurrence. Ethereum Classic, and you had Ethereum itself, or ETH. They decided to maintain a separate blockchain. So you had one Ethereum blockchain, and then the DAO came along, and we had 2 blockchains and 2 new tokens of value, ETC and ETH. That's suboptimal in my opinion, but some people like that. Now we also had Consensus. This was right around the time that we had Consensus here, and they came and talked to us. Remember, we had all the folks from Consensus, and talking about all these great things that people are going to build on Ethereum. But the bloom, to say the least, I think the bloom is off the rose a little bit, and we're now on hard fork number 4. Spurious Dragon, and it looks like, because they have a Turing complete computer attached to a token of value, whenever there can be a hack, there will be a hack which will require a fork. We're on fork number 4. They're getting very good at dealing with these hacks. And sorry, where's my cursor? Come on, cursor. Complexity.
It keeps bouncing.
Maybe if you click on a more recent message, it'll hold it there.
Complexity is at the center. This is the point that Willie has made in other meetings, where complexity is at the center. It's not removed from the coin. It's actually at the center of the coin, the token of value. There's a Turing complete computer attached to the coin itself. It's not the separation of concerns that, if you've ever done software development, you create, stacks. You create functionality that has like controlled inputs and outputs from the next layer in the stack, and on and on and on. And in this case, the complexity is embedded right in the center. Yes, my. Anyway, you should.
Yes, because
Well,
hello is not something you would normally say. Say it's really mean.
Anyway, that led us to Willie's defining the shitcoin pattern, which is the initial hype, and then the subsequent dead cat bounce. There's the dead cat bounce, and then death. Right, and here are the coins. Here's a list of Bitcoin competitors. Bitcoin is now worth over $12 billion. Ethereum was around 1.5 billion. Back when we had those consensus folks here, and they were talking about, hey, we're going to build an identity system, a new DNS system. We can do supply chain management. All this is going to run on this beautiful world computer called Ethereum. And that's when Willie said, hey, it might be shitcoin. Anyway, we shall see. I think Ethereum is a very cool idea. There's all of the projects that we talked about, Ethereum doing are very exciting. Distributed identity, a new DNS system. All these things are very exciting. And I don't know if Ethereum will end up being a footnote in the story, and maybe that'll get delivered in another way. There's a very interesting project. I don't have a slide for it, but called Rootstock. Have you heard of Rootstock? Which is a Turing complete computer that uses Bitcoin, and there's a very defined inputs and outputs between Rootstock and Bitcoin. All right. Oh, there's my London Review book. Sorry, this tab is in the wrong spot. This is a long form journalism piece about Craig Wright. It's a really good read. You can check it out. I'll repost it in the group afterward. All right, it's 2016. 2016 is a time marker, right? We're going to mark a new year here. But Bitcoin keeps its own time. This is the Bitcoin clock, and it's not counting actual time. It's counting blocks, which are supposed to happen every 10 minutes, right? So you get 144 blocks in a day. 2016 blocks before any difficulty changes, and every 210,000 blocks you get a halving. Right, the halving event occurs, but they count blocks, not time. But you can kind of measure it in terms of time because the blocks are supposed to happen every 10 minutes, more or less. So we can say that the next halving is going to happen in July of 2020, but that's really just a guess, right? Okay. It's just Will and Peter going back and forth.
Right.
That's okay. That's enough. That's enough to have an interesting conversation.
If you type hello again, they'll freak out.
Yes, they think that they can do anything in there and nobody's watching. All right, so we had the halving. I was actually out of town. It happened in July of this year. What is the halving?
We had a party.
Yeah, we did. Did you guys have a party?
We did.
That's cool. I like that. But it wasn't that exciting in terms of like, woohoo, like something crazy happening. It just kind of came and went, and without much fanfare. Now, this happens every 4 years. It happened back here at the end of 2012, right? And that was right before the big price jump. Here we are in 2016. It says 2017, but we're a little bit early. And the next one is supposed to happen in 2020. But this red line is the periodic reduction in the Bitcoin inflation rate. This blue line is the total number of coins in existence, right? You can see that it approaches 21 million. This blue line is using this right-hand vertical axis, and someday we will have only 21 million Bitcoins, right? And we can see that on this graph here. Here's one representation of the halving. Basically, the rate at which new Bitcoins happen, the slope of this curve is getting less, right? So the total number of Bitcoins is growing at a different rate than it was here. Now, this is all supposed to be very predictable, right? The number of Bitcoins is predictable. The inflation rate of Bitcoins is predictable. Here, these are very steady, nice straight lines that we can predict. But what is not predictable? Miner revenue and the ancillary effects to this happening. It's very interesting to me that miners' revenue went way up in anticipation of the halving, and then of course the block reward went from 25 bitcoins every 10 minutes to 12.5 bitcoins every 10 minutes, and so we popped down here. So on a certain day, if you're a Bitcoin miner, you were making this much, and then the next day you were making a lot less. But they knew that was happening, right? They knew that at a certain point in time, this was going to happen. So presumably they were able to prepare. Unlike our own Federal Reserve, when they make an announcement, you're like, oh, what are they going to say? This is why we hang on every word of Janet Yellen, but we don't need a Janet Yellen with Bitcoin. We've got the code to look at. All right, what else happened here, guys? Do you guys remember the Bitfinex hack? How many people were around when Mt. Gox went under? Mt. Gox, yes, wasn't that exciting? There were a few people saying Bitcoin died on that day. And we were doing all right for a few years. I mean, obviously, it's never good to store your Bitcoins on an exchange. You do not know what will happen to an exchange. They've been hacked. They've been, people run away with the money. It is not good to store your Bitcoins on an exchange. And we learned that yet again this year. And this was huge. The Bitfinex hack was huge. What are the figures here? 744,000 Bitcoin. 300. Oh no, that was Mt. Gox. What it was? 119,000 Bitcoin, right? Or $66 million. Only 18% as big as Mt. Gox. And when Mt. Gox went under, it was basically the only exchange in the world. And if you were trading Bitcoin, then you lost something, right? And today we've got dozens of Bitcoin exchanges, and Bitfinex was one of the largest. And this is no insignificant amount of money, yeah. And it was associated with a novel multi-signature security paradigm that they were touting as innovative. Here you can control your own funds. You can, they're trying to actually solve some of the problems that we saw on Mt. Gox. And I still don't understand exactly what happened. I don't know if anybody does. Anybody look into this Bitfinex hack? And it was very mysterious because they were doing a multi-signature security paradigm where the actual end users have one of the keys needed to send Bitcoins, and somehow they were able to crack it.
Can I ask a silly question? If each transaction is identifiable, what could they do with the Bitcoins that they stole?
Well, they're identifiable by number, but unless you can attach a name to the number,
right? But
then
they're identifiable by number. So when those Bitcoins are spent, you can actually keep track of it.
You can, but you don't know once they've changed hands 2 or 3 times. You don't know if they've sent the Bitcoins back to themselves or sent them to somebody new. So if I were to be the hacker, if that was a possibility, if I were the Bitfinex hacker, the day afterward I could create 10,000 new Bitcoin addresses, send random amounts to 10,000 Bitcoin addresses that I also own, and you don't know if I've just sent that to 10,000 people, if I've sent it to a Bitcoin mixer, if I've spent that money. Now you can, you might buy Bitcoin today and you could actually track back, because there's a public ledger, you could go back all the way to find out that, hey, this Bitcoin that I have, that used to belong to the Bitfinex hacker, which is kind of interesting. But it has to flow, and at a certain point in time, you can't go back and find that person, because then you can't use those Bitcoins. This is actually a problem with Bitcoin as it stands now. It harms the utility of Bitcoin that we have this ledger, because it means that one Bitcoin is not one Bitcoin is not one Bitcoin. It harms the fungibility of Bitcoin. The U.S. government could say, you know what, Bitcoins that used to belong to the Silk Road, or Bitcoins that were hacked on Bitfinex, you can't use those. Those are illegal. Right. Which means you have a blacklist, and maybe China has their blacklist, and then maybe they say that if Bitcoins were ever used for online sports betting, then those are on the blacklist, and pretty soon the utility of Bitcoin goes away. So it's one of the things that you need to keep your eye on with Bitcoin is the fungibility. They're working on that problem. They're actually creating more anonymity for Bitcoin, for better or worse. That's what they're working on, and because we've got this censorship possibility, it's a problem that needs to be solved.
Peanut Gallery have anything to add to this?
Let's see.
1900 messages, so maybe they do.
Let me see here. You don't want to see that.
No,
I'm
carry
good.
on. Okay.
I'd wait until privacy protocols arrive for Bitcoin before spending it. So, there are competitors to Bitcoin that come along and say, Bitcoin's not anonymous, so why don't you use Zcash or Monero or some of these other coins that are privacy coins? But Will, being the Bitcoin pumper and maximalist that he is, says, don't worry, Bitcoin will solve that problem. You don't need Zcash or Monero or Dash. Right? But he's just trying to pump Bitcoin so that he can profit on that. He's a pumper.
Well, he's not going to make it in the business. Tell that.
All right, so here we are, October, like months and months later. They still the next hack they say is still affecting the price. All right, here's another thing that happened. Remember we talked about Mike Hearn at the top of the show. He went on to this consortium of banks called R3. So forget about anonymous currency. The banks are going to get involved and they're going to do blockchain right, and that's what R3 was. Mike Hearn went there. Some other prominent Bitcoiners went to R3, and there were lots of big banks. I think that initially it was a consortium of 40 banks. It ended up being many, many more, and they were going to take over the world. Fast forward 6 or 8 months, Santander quits. They open source their whatever they've built, and it's not clear what the future is for blockchains and banks. And I think this is interesting because there's a lot of hype around blockchain, right? In fact, you could almost say that all of the innovation that's been happening in banking is because Bitcoin came along and because of the blockchain, and there was a big effort to say, well, Bitcoin's bad, blockchain's good, but can you have a blockchain without something like Bitcoin? And the banks were trying to make this happen, but it's almost like innovating your own profit mechanisms into oblivion, right? There you have mixed, you have many masters, and banks, they call it the innovator's dilemma. Like, if you're a company, can you innovate if that innovation destroys your business model? It's very hard to do. This is why, Kodak went out of business, for example, or Blockbuster Video was replaced by Netflix, because you can't, if you depend on a certain model, it's very hard to create the thing that disintermediates yourself. So anyway, that was R3, a big thing that happened this year. Here's another thing, the Internal Revenue Service woke up. They're like, oh, what's going on today? Oh, blockchain! Holy cow! All these people are using Bitcoin and blockchain to not pay their taxes. We're gonna hit up Coinbase. Coinbase, you've been selling Bitcoins for a couple years to a bunch of people, and they're probably using that to avoid their taxes. Why don't you give us all your user information? And this is still in the works. They're pushing back. They're saying, we don't want to give you all everybody's information. It's kind of a gray area. I think it's just a matter of time before companies like Coinbase they're going to have their own form, their own IRS form, I think, that they're going to send to the IRS every year. This is my prediction. It hasn't happened yet, but I mean, this is what, if you have a brokerage account with E-Trade and you make money, they send something to the IRS, right? Or if you have an employer, they send paperwork to the IRS.
Even if you don't make money.
Yes, so it's just a matter of time, and like I said, the Internal Revenue Service reared their ugly head this year, and that was kind of the last thing that happened. What did I miss? What else happened this year? Did I miss anything? Come on, Will, Simon. Peanut gallery?
Scroll down. You gotta scroll down.
All right. Scroll down.
Scroll down and.
There's that picture if you wanted to see it.
Yeah.
Did you ever see that?
Okay, they did say.
Oh,
about the things.
God. That's a carrot, by the way. I don't know what you guys are. I don't know where your minds went. But that's just a carrot and a banana peel. Let's see. What did we miss? Okay, they're still talking about the IRS. Anyway, it was a big year in Bitcoin. We got together every Tuesday. Well, I took a few breaks. I went to South Africa to see Peter, and I went to the United States to go to a family reunion. But for the most part, we were here every Tuesday night talking about not only Bitcoin, but all of the things that when you start talking about Bitcoin, you start talking about society and money and how we all cooperate and exist on planet Earth, and how does it affect this ever-changing world? The world seems to be speeding up in the way that things are changing.
Well, you did miss a couple. Brexit. We had a long conversation.
We did cover Brexit.
Yeah.
It wasn't really, so that's a good example of it wasn't really, it had nothing to do with Bitcoin, but it had something to do with decentralization, right? And Brexit was an example of, instead of consolidating and centralizing, and it seems like there was a 20 or 30 year trend towards more bigger government. There was this moment where the UK said, no, we want our sovereignty. We want to make our own decisions. We no longer want to be a part of this political entity that centralizes control in Brussels. And we're racist and we hate immigrants and we're a bunch of bigots. That was another narrative.
And never mind that
I
it was
know.
all about
I don't know
health
about that.
insurance, and then they reneged on that. So.
Yeah, they never really were committed though. They never did the euro. They always had one toe kind of back across the English Channel. It would have been much messier if they had gone to the euro, don't you think?
Yeah, would have been harder to.
And that was a big piece of sovereignty that they did not give up. And you can compare and contrast that to Greece, because Greece did give that up.
Yeah.
And earlier this year, they were really they held a referendum that was ignored by the EU. So, the birthplace of democracy is dead. I think there's a lot of writing on the wall there in the Greek story, which is another thing that we talked about.
A lot.
But we got together every Tuesday night and we talked about these things, and we had a really, I think we are all more informed because everybody was participating in these conversations that we've had. We have our Tuesday night meeting, and then we go out afterward and we drink a few beers, and people let it all hang out and tell us what they really think. All the people at home get to miss out on that. But anyway, it's been a great year. It's been a great year, and we're going to do it again in 2017. This is the last meeting of the year, our last filter meeting of the year, but we're going to reconvene on the 3rd of January. So we're only going to miss 1 week, and we're going to be right back at it. And we're going to do some really interesting things in 2017. And one of those is this project that we're working with BitGive. And that's why we've got Jay here. Give us a little bit of a scoop on the BitGive project and Medic Mobile and what
Yeah, sure. No, I know we're at the end of our time together, so I'll make it very fast. So the update, last time that I was able to join you guys, unfortunately I've been in Nepal and now back, we were looking for a vendor to accept Bitcoin to buy cell phones, to buy basic Android phones. We've now found that vendor.
Yep,
right
we don't have ink yet, but we got them in our sites.
We have the vendor in our sites, and
they're happy because they may buy hundreds of phones, so that could happen. So
so that's a good.
It's a win-win, I think.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then the second piece of it is the platform on BitGive itself. The transparency platform is going to be ready in January, according to Connie, who's the director at BitGive. So they're looking forward to launching that. So I think the stars are aligning nicely.
Right.
You ready to go?
BitGive has created this platform that allows people to track their charitable donations. Yeah. So isn't this cool? Like they have a big story, and you're like, oh, that sounds great. I want to give some money, and they create a technology platform that leverages the blockchain so that you can see exactly what you paid for once you've given something, which is a really, really exciting idea. And then they've partnered with Medic Mobile, which is where Jay is, who's got all of this technology around the phone applications and getting this into the hands of the They're called caters, right, which are kind of health workers that make it into the rural areas in Bali, and we're going to pilot this BitGive platform for this project that Jay is doing with Medic Mobile. So it's going to be, I think it's a really, really cool thing. We've already gotten, well, they have gotten, write-ups in Forbes, and there's a lot of excitement about the possibilities, and it's really cool that they're doing it here in Bali. And anyway, if you're interested in getting involved with, we need the phone vendors. We probably will need other help, Bitcoin help. And if you're interested in that kind of thing, let us know. And we're going to have another update in January when the platform is up and running. We're probably going to have Connie join us on a Skype call, and we can get into some of the details on how this actually works, which is super, super exciting. So 2017 is going to be a really cool year. We're going to continue to do these on Tuesday nights, and we're going to do some amazing things next year. So anyway, it's been fun. I'd like to thank all you guys that have been coming week in and week out. Also the new people, like it's always interesting to have new people in the room and joining us with, you never know who's going to show up here. So it's good to have different perspectives, and it's always interesting if sometimes it's a little contentious, but usually it's very fair-minded and civil. I've been to Bitcoin meetings in other parts of the world where people shout at each other. And if you get online, you can definitely see people shouting at each other. So we've got a very special thing here. Anyway, and I'd just like to say thanks for coming. And we won't be here next week, but the week following. Same place, same time. Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, and we'll see you next year. Thanks, guys.
So we offline.